Good morning, you guys, it's Karen, and I thought I would come and tell you, it's a long old list I've got here. I thought I would come and tell you my migraine rescue pack, or plan if you like, in case there was anything on here that you hadn't thought of and might work for you. So I split it into a few categories. The first category is preventatives. There's a lot of things I do that are preventative because I have chronic migraines, meaning that I get them about 28 days out of 30. So I get 2 or 3 days relief per month without any, if I didn't take any painkillers, that is. So there's preventative. Then there's the rescue medication for dizziness, neck pain and head pain, because they're the 3 kind of main symptoms I get. And I don't always get all 3. And then nausea is another symptom I get. Thankfully, I don't get that very often. And then finally, I've put one with the heading of hope. So these are the things that I'm trying going forwards and that I could try in the future, but I know there's still hope left. You know, there's still other things I can try. And I don't know whether you've heard me say it before, but as long as there is hope, then I don't get too depressed. I do have my moments. You know, a couple of nights ago I was sitting in bed crying because I was reading a new book that I bought on it, and I was just like, my whole life seems to be dedicated to these blooming migraines, you know, and just trying to find a way to live a normal life. And it can wear you down when you've had it day in, day out, you know, but I will normally just pull my socks up and go, right, okay, what else can I do? So let me start with the preventative. The Botox that I've had is a preventative. That's supposed to reduce the migraines from, well, by 50%. That is the aim. For me, I've had my 3rd lot probably 6 weeks ago now, and it doesn't seem to have reduced it at all. If anything, the Botox has made it worse. So that is a no for me, but that is the preventative thing that I've had. A lot of the medications that I'm on are preventative for migraines, but I was already on them anyway, or they were suggested and I'm taking them for something else. So I'm on candesartan. Candesartan is a blood pressure medication, and it works really well for me with my high blood pressure, but it's also something that they give you for migraines, but I was already on it. I'm also on bisoprolol, which is a beta blocker. That is another thing that they give you for migraines. I'm also on amitriptyline, yet another thing they give you for migraines. That one is more for nerve pain, and I'm already on that for bladder issues. That's like a life-saving drug for me, honestly. It's really, really amazing to me. But again, I've been on all of these drugs for many years and they haven't done anything for the migraines. But the doctor mentioned to me, the neurologist actually mentioned to me, oh, you need to stay on those, you know. And I was thinking, well, I am going to, because I'll be on the blood pressure medication forever, I would think. And amitriptyline I've been on for probably 20 years or so. I also take, I was trying to remember all the supplements I take, because I try different things. Actually, I've just remembered another thing of hope. But coenzyme Q10 is something I take, B2, vitamin D and E, and also I have tried 5-HTP, but it didn't do anything for me. But that's one I may try again, because sometimes, I guess just out of desperation, I'll hear or read about a couple of supplements and just buy them all and take them and go, oh, it hasn't worked in a couple of days. You know, I can sometimes be very impatient because you want something to work immediately. But those are the supplements that I can think off the top of my head I've tried. I do vestibular rehabilitation training or therapy. It is basically sitting, shaking my head about. That's what it is. Either sitting down, standing up with my eyes closed, up and down, side to side. There's lots of different ways of doing it, and the idea of that is to help with the vestibular system and the balance system to maybe stop the dizziness. So that's something that I did for a while, and then, to be honest, I completely forgot about it, and it's not something I remember to do, and I need to do it more and see if it helps. Again, I think I sort of did it very dedicated for a week, thought it was working for a couple of days, so, you know, stuck at it, and then I had a really bad week, and I just was like, no, it's not working, you know, I've got to be a bit more patient with things. Feverfew is something I've been taking recently, and I have been taking it every day. I've been taking one every day for about 2 weeks now. I haven't seen any difference, but I am going to take the whole bottle that I've got, so it's probably about 2 months in there, and see at the end of that if it's made any difference. Oh, I take antihistamines as well, I forgot to mention that. Red light therapy, that's something else that I do preventatively, but I don't do that as much as I should either, because it's something you need to do without your makeup on. And as I said in a recent video, it's putting my makeup on in the morning is something that I can do with my symptoms. I can sit on the couch and just sort of let my mind just concentrate on putting makeup on and take as long as I like in the morning. You know, now I don't have an office job to run to. It's something I really enjoy. And so I can only use my red light. This is the one I use when I don't have makeup on. But I have to say, I used this last night and I'm able to do a video this morning. Now, how my whole day will go, I don't know. But I know that there is some thinking that it can help with migraines, so I'm going to make a concerted effort to use that a bit more. That's the care lamp that I use. I will link it for you. It's really good. It's good for so many things. So is that everything preventatively? There's one other thing that I was going to put in the hope category, but I've started doing it, and it's called neuroplasticity. It's a really complicated subject, but it's basically changing the way that your brain is wired. And when you understand that your body can become accustomed to being in pain and being in chronic pain, and it's sort of learnt the pattern of, oh, okay, this is what happens, we get up and we're in pain or we're dizzy or whatever, you learn that you can change that. And I'm going to do a whole video on this because I think it's such an interesting subject, and I'm still in the process of researching it all and reading. I think I'm on my 3rd book just now. I'm reading all about it and how I can implement it. But it means that there are things that you can do if you have chronic pain, even if you cannot get off the couch. And so I'm really excited to tell you guys about that, because that's kind of the position I'm in. You know, people will ask me, well, what can you do? Can you listen to an audio recording, or can you do? And I'm like, no, I can't stand up, I can't walk about, because it takes me all my energy to get up and walk to the end of the house, and that I feel like I need to hold on to the wall because I'm dizzy. I can't really watch TV, I can't look at anything, I can't listen to anything because I'm really noise sensitive. So you have to get really creative to think of things you can do, and I just tend to watch something on TV with the volume really low, something that I'm not even that bothered about, you know, and kind of sulk. And the neuroplasticity has some other things that you can do that you might not have thought of. So I said I'm going to do a video on that. That's all my preventatives. I'm saying that these are all the things on this page that I can remember. I've tried so many things. Like I've tried acupuncture. I haven't even put that down because it's something I've tried and it hasn't worked, but I would be happy to try it again. I had acupuncture at the GP. I'm sure after this video somebody will leave something and say, oh, have you not tried this, or why don't you try this? And I'll be like, yep, I've tried that, I just forgot to mention it, you know. Anyway, on to rescue medication for neck, head and dizziness. So for dizziness, this is my #1 symptom. This is what I would say gives me the disability, if you like. It just means I have no quality of life. Everything is a real struggle, and sometimes I just can't even do things. But I don't really have anything that works for dizziness. So on this list there is Cinnarizine. Cinnarizine is in fact there's Meclizine as well that I have not yet tried. Cinnarizine and Meclizine, they're all kind of anti-dizziness tablets. You can try. I've tried all the the travel sickness tablets, because that's what it feels like to me. It feels like when you're travel sick, where you've got that sort of swimming head feeling. The Cinnarizine does work, but it just knocks me out and I need to sleep, and so it's kind of pointless, because at least if I'm dizzy and awake I can attempt to do things. I can sometimes get myself down here to the computer and try and do something, you know, or I can take Watson for a walk, but if I'm just knocking myself to sleep, that's no good, you know. So Cinnarizine doesn't work great. The Meclizine I've got to try. I don't know why I haven't yet. I think because there are some not so great side effects of that, and I can get a bit scared of taking new medication, you know. The only thing that I have that works for my dizziness, and it works probably 80 to 90% of the time, is Tramadol. Now Tramadol is an opiate. I used to be on a lot of codeine for these headaches, but I'm not anymore. I've sort of weaned myself off them. I still take it occasionally for joint pain and whatnot, but it isn't the best thing to take for migraines. But because of that, I've been prescribed it, but I'm only to take it twice a week, 3 times a week maximum. And that's because it can cause medication overuse headaches. And there are a lot of issues with Tramadol, from how you feel when you don't take it, if you've taken it even just for a couple of days. And also it can end up making your pain worse. So you need to be really careful with it. But weirdly for me, and nobody can seem to explain why, but it does stop my dizziness. Like I said, 80 to 90% of the time. And it's not something I expected it to work on. I expected it to work on my headache, that makes sense because it's a pain reliever. But why it stops my dizziness, I don't know, but it does. But I can only take that 2 times a week. And so I have to be really picky about when I take it. The last few weeks, I've been taking it at the weekend so that I can look forward to the weekend and have something to look forward to. And so just taking it for the 2 weekend days. But I'll sometimes need to take it if I've got appointments or anything like that, you know, if I'm meeting my friend for lunch, etc. Another thing that does sometimes help with the dizziness, but this is more of a kind of 50% of the time it helps, I guess, is a Physio Maneuver that my husband knows how to do now. And it's basically pressing a thumb very, very firmly into, there's a part in my neck there that when I press in, it brings on the migraine pain in my eye. And I can do the same in this one. The neurologist was a bit dismissive of that when I talked to him about it. You know, he was like, because I had thought it was cervicogenic headaches. That's what I'd been diagnosed with. I wasn't really convinced it was migraines. And he was like, well, there's no nerve that goes from there to your eye. So, you know, like I said, he was a bit dismissive. But this Physio Maneuver is you press your thumb very firmly in, and then you have to, so Kev would hold his thumb in and then you sort of turn into it. I can't remember which way you turn, I guess left. And you do that and for as long as you can bear, and then let go. And he does that 3 times on each side. And we've been known to do it like standing outside the car when I'm like, right, can you just do that maneuver and see if it helps? And sometimes that can kind of help with the dizziness. I've no idea how, but it does sometimes help. Stretches are something else that I do. I always do my neck stretches, regardless of whether my neck is hurting. And I do find that there's things that kind of click and crunch and sometimes feel like they might help. Like there's one I do where I lean up against a door and just put my head over to the left, but as far as I can. And sometimes there's a kind of click and a crunch and a kind of whooshing sound, which is really bizarre. But I think, oh, that feels like it's sort of released something in my neck, and sometimes that can help a little bit. I have to avoid triggers. If I avoid triggers, it will stop the dizziness getting worse some of the time. So triggers though are pretty much everything you do. Pretty much everything I do anyway. So filming like this I wouldn't be able to do because for some reason that's a trigger. I couldn't lift anything heavy. I couldn't fast forward the TV. I just have to sit through the adverts, and if there's any particular camera work on the TV, that's really bad for me anyway. You know, like they sometimes span around and I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm on a boat, you know. So I don't fast forward the TV. I normally get Kev to do it and I sort of cover my eyes. What else? I don't use my phone while I'm walking, and I don't like scroll on my phone. I have to be really, really slow and mindful on my phone. There's lots of things like that. Putting my neck over the bath to wash my hair, I don't do that. I don't sit at the computer and like scroll on anything on the computer. So avoiding triggers. And the final thing that does sometimes help is food. This is a really weird one, but I often feel better, the dizziness, after dinner. And I did wonder if that was a time thing, and it doesn't always work. This is something that works, I would say, probably 70% of the time. It is quite successful. And so Kev, bless him, has started making dinner a bit earlier now. And my friend had suggested, you know, why don't you have a big lunch? And I have tried all of this, and I've tried to sort of eat mid-afternoon so that I'm not hungry when dinner comes. It doesn't seem to make a difference. Having that large meal at dinner time seems to do something and make me feel better. And so I normally feel better in the evenings. Not always, but I do a lot of the time have the evenings to myself, you know, without feeling too terrible. Okay, so that's everything that I try as a rescue medication for the dizziness. For the neck and head pain, I've got a whole lot of kind of gadgets, and if I'm dizzy, I'll also use these things. So I suppose they all kind of mesh into one, because even if my neck's not hurting and I'm dizzy, I will use some of these things to see if they help the dizziness, because they sometimes help. So first thing that I use is this. This is called the Mynd machine. And so it's on a bit of blue sticky. You just peel that off and then stick it on your head, and then hold this down, and you can put it as high as you like. So this is basically like the Ssri. I actually wish I returned the Ssri. I wish I'd kept it and tried it a bit longer. It was just so expensive. It was £340. Then you spend £40 on the sticky things, whereas this one was half that price. This one was actually sent to me kindly by Current Body. You know how they send me things that I review over on my beauty channel, and she was so sweet and sent me this. And this has helped me. But the problem with this is it sometimes makes it worse. So sometimes I'll feel dizzy with a bit of a headache and I can use this and it cuts it completely and I feel better. Other times I can use it and it makes it worse and I feel worse. So it's difficult to know what to do when that happens, you know, but I'm going to persevere with this. What I found is that this works best for actual head pain. So when the head pain is really, really bad, that was the first time I used it and I was like, oh my God, I used it and it literally stopped the headache like that. So if head pain is your number one symptom, it might be worth giving this a try. So I try that. This is another thing that I use. This is a heated eye mask. This is just soothing more than anything. So you put it on like that and you need to plug this one in. It's not a cordless one, so you need to plug that in. And you've just got the controls there, and I just always have it on the highest. That's if I'm going to go to sleep. You know, if I want to lie down, it's great because it blocks out the light, but it's the heat I find very soothing. So I can't say, because somebody said to me, does it work? I showed it on Instagram. I was wearing it on Instagram and somebody said, oh, does it work? It doesn't work as in it doesn't cure the migraine. It doesn't do anything for the dizziness. But at the time I have it on, it is soothing to my head pain and it's soothing to me in general. I find heat completely soothing, you know, and so I do like it for that. I'll make sure I link these things for you. The other thing, of course, I use is a heat pad for my neck, but I only use this if my neck is hurting, because sometimes my neck, I can tell, is involved with a headache, and other times it's nothing to do with it. But this is something I use, I don't know, every other day, if not daily. And when I use it a couple of times a day. And so it is shaped to the shoulders and neck. So it sits really nicely on there, and there's a little bit that sort of is up there. There is actually a little popper, but I don't use that. I actually tend to put it like that so that you really get every bit of heat close to you, you know. So that's really good. I really like that. I actually put that on if we are going for a walk at the weekend with Watson and I have taken my tramadol because I've started to feel dizzy or I've started to get, you know, head pain, but I'm still not feeling great, I will normally put that on and have it on in the car, and that kind of seems to help. I think the blood like opens the heat helps the blood kind of rush to the area and open the vessels and whatnot. I don't know, I do find that help. Another thing for my neck that I use is this, and I would probably use this before the heat pad for 10 minutes because that's kind of like one round, if you like. And I often find that when I use this, even if I think, like now my neck is a little bit sore, but it's not causing any headache or anything, but if I put this on just now and sit with it on for 10 minutes, it's really funny. If you get it in the right place, it can kind of make you move your neck and head involuntarily, which is really weird. But at the end of the 10 minutes, I can take it off and kind of have those clicks that you'll know what I mean if you have neck pain, that feel really nice, where you're like, and you hear a click and you think, yeah, that's a release, you know, and that often helps in that way. And then I'll follow it with the heat pad. I've talked about this, I've done a whole video on this. It was the kind of gadget of the month or whatever. It's really, really good. The other thing I use is kind of the opposite of heat, but this makes you freezing cold. So this one is called Forehead, that you can just buy in the shops, and you just, you know, you can go straight on your head. But this is not quite as strong as this that I use, which is peppermint oil. This is pure peppermint oil in here. I've put it in a little roller ball and I just roll it on my head. I've put some on there because my husband is not home. I can't normally use this one if my husband's home because it gives him a headache. Even just like if I put this on when I was in the bedroom, he would get a headache from going into the bedroom all day long. The scent is that strong to him. You know, it's funny because there's things that I feel like that about as well, you know, so we try to not do that to each other, you know. So I'll tend to use this one if he's here, or this one if he's out, and I prefer this one because it really freezes your head. And when you've got a headache, it's almost like your head is freezing cold, therefore you focus on the freezing cold feeling on your head and you can't feel the headache. It almost numbs it, you know. It's really, really good in that respect. It can't stop the pain in your eyes, but on the head it definitely works. And I think that's a little bit of the idea behind neuroplasticity. When I do the video explaining it, I'm going to do lots of kind of analogies and how I think it works, because I know that helps me. And I think that that's the same kind of thing. Like I'm tricking my brain, you know, to experience the coolness, and then it doesn't notice the headache. I used to say that about my period pain because I have endometriosis, and I used to say that about having a hot water bottle because people would always tell me off, whether it was in relationships or my mum, or people would tell me off for having such a hot water bottle, because I used to have these red marks all over my stomach for days, and they'd be like, you shouldn't be having it that hot, you know, and I'd be like, I do it. The pain is so bad that the pain of when I burn my stomach is actually better than the endometriosis period pain cramp, you know. That was before I hadn't discovered codeine then. Codeine is something that actually works for my endometriosis for sure, and I don't get it as much now, but I think that's the same thing as well, you know. It's just finding something to trick the nerves into not focusing on the pain. Okay, what else? Let's see if I've got everything. So this is for the neck and head pain, the Rescue. Mynd, Peppermint. The Mynd machine is that little kind of TENS machine thing. Heat pad for my head, yeah. Oh, heat pad on the head, heated eye mask. This one, I keep forgetting about this, but this worked one day. I need to put a little asterisk by that. I'm putting the asterisk by things I need to remember and try. This is the thing, there's so many things on the list, you forget to do it all. But one day I was telling my husband that when I was with this, when I was dating this Algerian, he had really bad headaches. And it was before I'd ever had a headache. I was in my 20s. And I didn't get a headache until I was 33. But he used to walk around the house. I used to get a tie and tie it around his head really tight. And I used to think he was nuts. But actually, since having these headaches myself, I understand it, because sometimes in winter I'll wear a woolly hat in the house, even if it's not a tight one, but the tighter the better. The sort of pressure on your head is comforting and it feels better. And there was one day I was telling my husband this, and I was saying to him, I just feel at the minute like something that sort of pressed down on my head would help. And he said to me, why don't you put your heat pad on top of your head? So I heated this up, and this is actually quite heavy. And I sort of lay down and put this on my head for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, whatever, maybe not as long as that. And it really helped. It really, really helped. So that's something else that I'm going to try and remember and try. Drugs wise, I take paracetamol. I always try paracetamol, and I don't know why I bother, because it doesn't really help, but it helps with some of my other joint pains and whatnot that I've got. And paracetamol is something that my neurologist wants me to stop, but it gives me an awful lot of things to stop and not really very much to try, you know, for the pain, other than he told me ginger tea, which has done nothing, by the way. Ginger, that's another thing I tried for the dizziness, didn't help whatsoever. So paracetamol I do take, and I sometimes take it with codeine if I'm desperate. I'm just like, I'm going to try this, because very occasionally codeine will work for my headache. It doesn't work for the dizziness. In fact, it can make it worse, but it does help for the headache. Tramadol I've talked about, and the other one that I don't talk much about is Diazepam. Diazepam, I very rarely take that. I get a prescription of 10 every 6 months, so I don't take them very often at all, but they're the kind of last resort. I cannot bear this head pain. It's normally the head pain, it's the dizziness it doesn't help with, but if the head pain gets too excruciating, I will take one of those. It knocks me out and I can go to sleep, and sleep like overtakes the pain, and then normally when I wake up it's a bit more bearable. So that's something else that I use as a rescue medication. For the nausea, when nausea hits, which is normally when I need a diazepam actually, I've got a drug called metoclopramide. I don't take that very often either, because like I said, thankfully I don't get nausea very much. That's everything for the rescue medication. What I have got though, like I said, is some things on my hope list. Some of them are a bit out there, and some of them are a bit scary because of the side effects, because they're drugs. The next thing on my list to try is called Serrapeptase. Serrapeptase is, again, one of those drugs that I'd like to do a video on, because it's something that's a little bit controversial. There's not an awful lot of research out there, but people swear by it. And actually, I was initially told about it by a guy in the park with, you know, we were chatting with our dogs, and he uses it for arthritis and said it is a miracle. So that's something that I have in the cupboard, and I'm going to try, but I want to wait until I've tried the Feverfew for long enough before I switch to the Serrapeptase. That is more of a pain reliever, so I don't know how much it will help with the dizziness, but I figure if tramadol works and it's a pain reliever, then it's worth trying any pain relievers. Neuroplasticity is something I'm working on. Oh, see, I'm talking about my neck, and now my neck's hurting again. I think that's something... that's more of a psychological thing, you know. CBD oil is something I intend to buy some more CBD oil and try that again, a bit more concentrated. I think, again, it's something that I tried as a rescue medication, but I think it might be good if I can use it for I mean, it's really, really expensive, but if I can use it consistently for a few days and see if I get any effect at all from it, I think that would be good. The menopause, that gives me hope, because I feel like the perimenopause has contributed hugely, and I've read from so many women that once they were postmenopausal, the dizziness and the headaches went away, or certainly improved. Not for everybody, but a lot of people. And I was convinced that the perimenopause was causing this, because although I've had migraines for 20 years, nearly 20 years, they started getting worse when I was 45, so 5 years ago, or nearly 5 years ago. And they've got worse and worse and worse every year. And so have my menopause or perimenopause symptoms, the hot sweats, and my periods have been erratic and heavy bleeding, and all of that kind of thing. So I have hope that when I am postmenopausal, hopefully next year, that things will improve. Diet, there are still many different diets that I need to try. I have tried cutting things out. There's a lot of things on the trigger lists that I don't eat anyway, but that's something I find a bit more difficult, because as it is, I'm always trying to diet to lose weight, and to focus on an eating plan, it is really, really difficult. That's one of the things I find the most difficult. I just need to eat, I don't need to think about and plan and cook, so, but that's something that is, there are definitely diet options. Dry needling or Rolfing, these are things that I've not really looked into too much, but have been mentioned to me, and so I've put them on the list. Rolfing is a type of massage, but it's a very specialised type of massage, and dry needling is kind of like acupuncture, but something different. I've tried medical acupuncture with the GP, and I've tried Chinese acupuncture privately, and neither of those necessarily helped. The GP one, I did used to think that helped, and I'm pretty sure I could call him and get a session. It's very quick, because they don't leave them in like Chinese acupuncture. You press it in and take it out, and you can kind of feel it in your throat. It's very odd. So that might be worth me doing again. And then there are some things on the drug list. Meclizine is on there. Like I said, that's an anti-dizziness drug, but it's not something you can take every day. That's the only thing, and it hasn't been prescribed for me. It's just I've bought it. But Aimovig, that gives me a lot of hope. Aimovig is, I think it's Erunutab. I can't remember how you say it exactly, but it's another injection. That should be the next thing I get from the neurologist, but I have to wait until the end of September when I see the Botox nurse and tell her I don't want the Botox. Then she needs to get me an appointment with the neurologist, and then he needs to book me in for this injection. And then I believe it can take 3 months for it to start to work. So there's still some time to go, but it is on my hope list. It's something that seems to have worked for a lot of people. There's some other drugs that I could try. Pizotifen is one that I've put on the list, and I can't even remember what that is, but I know that there are some people who are on that. I go on these Facebook groups, so I'm on a Facebook group for vestibular migraines and chronic migraines, and so I'll always note down things if somebody says they're taking something and it's working, and then there's two that I think I could ask my GP for. One is gabapentin. I really, really don't want to take gabapentin, but my dad was on gabapentin, and he eventually did well on it. But just the side effects are pretty scary with it, But there's something in me that thinks epilepsy medication, because that's what gabapentin is, would be pretty good. Is it? Or is that something else I'm thinking of? Anyway, I've got a brother who is epileptic, and my dad and I have had these night terrors that were connected to a kind of epilepsy. This is a whole nother story, but I've got a feeling that anything that works on epilepsy might actually help me for some reason. Anyway, gabapentin is something that I might try, but I would have to be pretty desperate to try that. And something else is an SSRI. So an SSRI is an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety medication. I took an SSRI, I can't even remember the name of it, but I took it for maybe 3 or 4 days, and I felt really, really weird, so I stopped taking it. And I didn't actually feel like I needed the medication. I think that was the downside to me seeing a psychiatrist. I was working at the hospital, and because I worked there, the psychiatrist was in the next building, and so my GP said, let me refer you to this psychiatrist. Normally you see a psychologist, because I was having really bad anxiety. I was literally jumping at everything. I got in my car and put a CD in and jumped out of my skin. but being as it meant I could just nip over there for the appointment and go back to work, I saw this psychiatrist, and she herself said I wouldn't normally see people like you know, she'd normally see people that were schizophrenic or, you know, really needed medicating. And so I think her method normally involved medication, you know, but actually when I went back to her and said, I don't think that medication's for me, she said, you're right, I've thought about it and you don't really need medication. I think this is something you can cope with. What was my point in telling you that? Oh, SSRI, but I'm sure there's other SSRIs, and I'm sure it's something I could give another try. And that's something that works on the serotonin in your brain, and serotonin is thought to have a connection to migraines. And so this is another option, but yeah, not keen. These would be last resort drugs. That's it. That's everything. But that hope list is quite long, as you can see. And so that's, you know, people are often saying, I'm surprised that you are so upbeat about it. And obviously I'm upbeat when I'm on camera, but a lot of the time I'm not upbeat when I'm not on camera. But what keeps me going is hope, is knowing that this is not forever. You know, if at any point I run out of options, that's when I'll be depressed. That happened with my polycystic ovary. I was really struggling with it. I was working in the in the hospital again, and I was seeing a lovely guy called Colin. I can't remember his surname now, but again, he was somebody that I worked with research-wise, and then I was seeing him about my hormone imbalance, and he told me to try cyproterone. And I remember him saying to me, if this doesn't work, we've kind of tried all of the medication, and that's kind of the end of the road. And I didn't want him to see me upset. I could feel myself getting really upset because I had tried a tablet with cyproterone in it years ago, and it made me very sick. So I was just felt despair. I was like, this is it. It can't be controlled. And I remember I left, and I went, this nurse got a hold of me, and she was like, because I was crying by the time I left, you know, and she took me in this side room. And then suddenly Colin appeared. Somebody had gone and told him that I was upset, and he came in and was asking what was wrong. And oh, it was awful. It was very embarrassing. But I was so upset because I was like, this is it. If this doesn't work, or this gives me side effects, I have nothing else. And I just have to get used to having these horrible feelings of, I was having massive mood changes. My hair felt greasy all the time. My makeup wouldn't stay on my face. I had so much acne. It was painful and embarrassing and making me really self-conscious. It was awful. For something that sounds so benign, I felt really down about it, you know. And I was put on weight in all the wrong places and all of that. But yeah, I have hope. So I'm going to stop rambling because I think I've been talking for long enough. I really hope this is useful to you. These videos are really important to me because your doctor won't have time and research to tell you everything that is available to try for any one condition. Do remember that, you know, you should probably check everything with your doctor anyway before doing anything. And I'm not a medical professional. These are just things that I'm trying, but it might give you an idea of something you want to try. So yeah, I hope that was useful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon.